im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati.
Pozdrav, dragi narode. Dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni. Gender ideologija. Da li je to stvarno ideologija ili želja za ravnopravnost svih građana, za ravnopravnost manjinskih skupina koji traže i smatraju da nemaju dovoljno velika prava? Da li je to samo ideologija ili postoji za toga još nešto? Puno ima špekulacija o tome. Naravno, mi smo tu da otvaramo teme, da o tome razgovaramo i današnji naš gost je netko koji je stručnjak, koji se godinama tim bavi i koji će nam najbolje moći s prve ruke objasniti o čemu se tu radi i objasniti što nam je činiti. Od sada nadalje ovaj razgovor će biti na engleskom jeziku. Hello, Dr. Lee. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me today. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Great. Dr. Lee is the expert in this topic today. And please, can you tell a few words about yourself and your work?
Certainly. Thank you. My full name is Elizabeth Lee Vliet, and I am a physician in the United States. I have practiced preventive and climacteric medicine for 38 years. Climacteric medicine is the study of hormone change in men and women from puberty through late life and how all of our hormones affect all of our body systems, brain, and all of our critical organs. I'm also the CEO and president of Truth for Health Foundation, a human rights organization, public charity that defends medical freedom and the right to life. We are a faith-based Christian organization that has been advocating to stand against the evil of the COVID tyranny. In addition, my background is also both internal medicine and I have formal training in psychiatry and behavioral medicine, and actually studied under one of the leading experts on gender ideology and the misuse of gender dysphoria as a political weapon, as it has become, Dr. Paul McHugh, who was chief at Johns Hopkins, where I did part of my formal specialty training after graduating from medical school. So actually, my background and experience in the world of treating gender dysphoria patients goes back to when I was in medical school, Andrea. The team of surgeons, plastic surgeons, urologists, gynecologists at my medical school in Norfolk, Virginia, were some of the early pioneers of the attempts to do gender reassignment surgeries. And as a medical student, I actually had the experience of scrubbing in as a student on those surgeries while they were being done. So I was actually in the operating room with the experts who were doing the surgeries. And then as a medical student, we followed the patients after that. And I will say that although the efforts, these were good doctors trying to help patients at the time. They were not what we see today, doing it for the big bucks and all of the government money that is being poured into this in ways that are not medically sound and certainly not in the best interest of children, in my view. But the doctors were trying to determine whether such surgeries could be done, whether they should be done, and what were some of the complications. And I will tell you, there probably are not many practicing physicians now in the U.S., other than surgeons, as well as in Croatia and places in Europe, that have actually had the experience during medical training to be in those surgeries, watching what is done and following the patients afterwards. And I was really shocked at the ordeal post-surgery that the patients, it was awful to see the pain, to see the disfiguration, to see the complications that emerged over time. And it is a very catastrophically serious surgery with many adverse outcomes, many adverse effects, and the potential for lifelong chronic pain. It is, and what is even more tragic is that over the years since I've been in medicine, tracking the outcomes for the patients who had gender reassignment surgery, we find that they have a very high rate of suicide after the surgery over time because of the long-term pain and complications and disfigurement. And many of those problems become worse as people get older. And this was part of the work that Dr. McHugh was doing in analyzing the data on the outcomes in these patients years down the road to see the high incidence of major depression, anxiety, dysfunction, both urinary dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, psychological impairment, and the high rate of actual completed suicide in the patients 10, 15, 20 years after the surgery. It's a very, very dire picture.
Well, I heard some of examples. They regret it after a few years. Now, you have in the United States, especially in California, you have a law that children below 8 years old, they can decide to change gender. And in case that their parents doesn't agree about it, they can be punished from the state.
It is a totalitarian interference, unconstitutional in the United States, interference with the family unit, and the parents are the ones responsible for children until they reach the age of consent. In most states, that's 18. And this is a very ominous trend in the very liberal Democrat-controlled states in the United States. California is one of the worst. And this new law is unconstitutional, and it will be challenged in court. The problem is that until the legal cases work through the legal system, which can take several years, the parents are being punished by the state. They are being threatened with having their children taken away from them. They are being threatened with jail and other punitive measures. This is highly wrong under the law and under the ethical code of medicine, under our Constitution, all the way around. It is staggering damage to the constitutional republic rule of law.
You mentioned that that became ideology, and it's a weaponized political weapon. What do you mean by that?
I mean that medicine and the family and patients across America are being told what treatment is allowed under the control of bureaucrats in Washington and the states and the insurance companies, Big Pharma, all of the corporate interests that are governing medical practice now in the United States are directing their agenda that is disrupting the family unit, disrupting individual physician-patient relationships, disrupting patient rights and informed consent, and suppressing medical facts to allow people to make informed decisions. It is very much what I saw in the Soviet Union when I was in the Soviet Union in 1974 and 1975 as a very young woman. We were on an educational mission. At that time, I was also in Eastern Europe under Soviet control in 1979. It's very much the same draconian, punitive, totalitarian control of the people, control of access to medical care, control of individual decision-making, and it is a very evil agenda that is being unleashed on humanity worldwide, led by global elites. World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, Gavi, the Global Alliance for the Vaccine Initiative founded by Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab. All of these elites are deciding what is going to be taught in our schools, what is going to be allowed for medical treatment, what payments are going to be sent to hospitals to incentivize the death protocols or the surgical protocols to change, to reassign a gender based on a surgical change. You know, Andrea, surgery, I have treated patients over a number of years who have had surgical gender reassignment, giving them the hormones of the opposite sex, and I try to do what is in that patient's interest. I'm not judgmental with my patients. If someone has had the surgery and they wish to maintain the hormone balance and I am treating them, I try to accept that person as they are. But changing the hormones, changing the physical body, removing the breast, castrating a male and removing the penis and the gonads does not make a man a woman, or does not make a biological female a male. And that's a fact of life, whether or not the politicians and the globalists want to try and say otherwise. I still have to, in my patients, I have a man who more than 25 years ago underwent surgical reassignment to a woman. The fact that his penis and testicles were removed at that time, and the fact that he then had breast implants and now is in a female body habitus and taking female hormones, doesn't change the fact that I also have to think about the fact that he has still a prostate. He's still at risk. He's genetically male. He's still at risk for prostate cancer, even though I now refer to her and I give her hormones to maintain the female body that was surgically done before I ever came into the picture. But we still have the biology of the male in a body that has been surgically altered to appear female. And that's just a fact of life.
Yeah, but we have to also distinct. When you have informed consent, when you have somebody who is 18, 20, 22 years old, and he decides to change gender, it's something different than when you have now that they are allowing children under age of 8 to make decision what gender they are. What do you think? What is their
exactly
main goal?
Right.
Yes.
I'll come back to the goal in just a moment. The person I just mentioned that has been under my care for many years medically made the decision in his 30s. So he was a he was a well-established career adult. when he made that decision, and he made it in full informed consent. And you're right, that is orders of magnitude different from a child whose brain is still developing. And we all know, anyone who has ever worked with children or had formal training in child psychology, child development, we all know that children go through various developmental phases. Girls want to be boys and boys want to be girls, and children have fantasies. This is all part of normal childhood development. To then say that a developing child with a developing brain has the capacity to make a life-altering decision for the rest of his or her life on their own with no guidance from any responsible adult is absolutely abhorrent, and it is designed to break the family unit, and it further fulfills the long-standing 100-year depopulation plan that the globalists are bragging about. And Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and many others have been on record describing for the last 25 to 30 years that the goal is to have no more than 500 million people on the planet, and they decide who lives and dies. This is an assault on humanity, ultimately, and those who are pushing this agenda know full well the damage to the children, the damage to the family. In the end, it is serving the purpose of these people who've had surgical gender reassignment cannot reproduce, period.
Yeah. Well, also some people are saying that behind this also is they're hiding some other things. For example, and that's serious accusation, they think that it's behind this hiding legalization of pedophiles. Well, let me explain. With the new sexual education, they are now trying to educate people, children even less than 4 years old and older. And now they are trying not to punish people who are elderly and who have a sexual relationship with the younger one. And they are trying to say that is a new sexual orientation named MAP, minor attracted person. And some people saying that this gender ideology also has this goal as one part of this total agenda. What do you think about this?
Well, I think that's correct. And also, I will tell you that over my medical career, and remember, I've been in medicine now, private practice, 38 years, and my medical training obviously began before that. So I've been in medicine a long time. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen thousands and treated thousands of patients over my career. I have treated people who were sexually abused as children. Those are lifelong scars. One of the worst sexual deviation disorders is pedophilia. It is absolutely horrific damage to children. And pedophilia is a powerful adult taking advantage of a vulnerable child for sexual gratification. It is one of the most evil abuses that I think can be perpetrated, other than what we're now learning about the rape and torture and trafficking of children for sexual gratification and other horrific, evil, heinous purposes. Those who haven't seen the movie Sound of Freedom need to do so, because this is probably one of the most evil things we are seeing being unleashed on humanity at this time, and that is the rape, torture, and abuse of children. And pedophilia is on that continuum of abuse of children.
Yes, there is an additional aspect. For now, we are seeing that males who decided to be female now they want to compete in a sport. And we are witnessing that champion in the swimming, United States, it's in a females competition, is ex-male. And we are now we're seeing this also in other sports like athletics. What do you think? Is it possible that female can be on track with the male and win it?
No, I don't. Because women genetically, biological women genetically cannot normally build the muscle mass. They don't have the same pelvic structure that allows them to run in the same way that genetic biological males do. The pelvic structure is different. The muscle mass capability is different. Strength is different. And we are seeing this is an abuse of women's sports, unequivocally. And in the United States, you may not remember, but I remember when Title IX went into effect, which was to make sports available for women in the same way that sports were available for men. And it was after Title IX was passed by Congress that we began seeing women's sports take off, and women had a place to compete where women were competing against women and men competing against men, which is clearly the fair way to undertake sports. And the Olympics were based on that as well. What's happening today is mocking femininity. It's mocking traditional values. It's undermining the success of women. And for all of the women who claim to be feminist and are supporting the trans agenda for former males to be taking part in women's sports simply because they identify as a woman now, those feminists are betraying everything they said they stood for to make equality available for women. They are undermining it. They're destroying it. And it is, again, part of this bigger picture of an assault on life as God designed it. All life, human and other biological forms of life on the planet.
Well, I see some competition, and how you can explain to some former male and now female, how can you explain that he cannot compete? That's not equal, that he has a right to compete. Now we see this even in this ultimate fight sports, where is strength the most important thing. And now we see also that their ex-males are winning and no female has a chance. But it's an important thing because we are talking about politics. How you can explain it now, according to the law, that he cannot compete anymore?
Well, I think it just simply takes courage and following the original intent of Title I. Biological males compete in male sports. Biological females, based on birth certificate, compete in women's sports. It's actually really very simple. It's in the law already. They simply have to decide to enforce it.
Okay. Now also we see that United Nations want to implement new sexual education. I have to remind you that in Croatia also starting a new agenda for sexual education from this autumn. And in this will be also that we have to teach children below the 4 years of age about sexuality. What do you think about their plans?
I think this is, again, psychologically very damaging. I think it is totally out of line, and it is using children and exploiting children, going back to your point about pedophilia. when we sexualize young children, and that has happened, and that's increasingly a problem over my career, where we've seen sexualization of women and men as sex object in advertising for various products. But to bring that into the schools and to start teaching sexual behavior for children that young, when they are still developing, their brain is still developing, and you are conditioning them to give into sexual impulses in ways that become unhealthy and damaging over time. Again, this is, I go back to the word evil because it is destroying the normal human development, normal human relationships, normal human family structure worldwide. It is using children for sexual gratification as objects, treating them as property to be manipulated by the state and by those with nefarious purposes. We have to stand against this evil. It is evil. It is simply destroying the life of a child and setting them up for damage for the rest of their life. There's no other way to say it.
But now actually this is accepted and is going in the program now. What we can do? WHO is forcing this and they want us to implement this program in school.
Well, it's not accepted by most normal people worldwide. It is being pushed and forced and coerced on people around the world. People around the world, just as the picture behind you shows, if people stand up against evil, we can overturn it. We can stop it. It is going to take a massive, peaceful, civil resistance to stop the World Health Organization tyranny. There's no other way. They are deciding as bureaucrats what humanity is going to do. There are more of us than there are of them. We need to stand against it, as Croatians did in November to stand against the vaccine passport.
That means we are now seeing a scenario what we had also in during the COVID. Now there's a new treaty, International Health Regulation, who says that WHO should have higher powers for the new situation, for emergency situation with international concerns, and they want all of us to sign it. And as I know, lots of countries already, United States, accept it, and now it should be signed in the next few months. That means in the next emergency situation, WHO will have higher authorities than our national constitutions.
Again, we, the people, need to stand against it, as the Croatians did in your photo, as people in France are doing, people in the Netherlands, Canada, Australia, around the world. People are saying no to tyranny, no more lockdowns, and no more forced vaccination, no more denial of treatment. It's going to take the citizens of the world, the March of the Angry Men from the song in Les Miserables. We, the people, have to stand against what the bureaucrats are illegally and unconstitutionally in the U.S. and against the charter rights in other countries, trying to force on the people of the world. We can do it peacefully. We simply do as the Croatians did to stop the vaccine passport.
Maybe we can mention also that now they also, when I'm saying they, I'm talking about WHO, now they are offer introduction for males how to breastfeed children. Do you know something about this?
Yes, I have. They are actually calling it chest feeding. And it's a fake. It's a fake breast. It's a fake bottle held at the chest. Fathers, true fathers, have been feeding babies since the dawn of time and the dawn of humanity. To try and say that a man, genetic male, can actually breastfeed is not biologically correct. You can fake it, but that doesn't make it biologically correct. And the formula that has to be used for men to pretend to be chest feeding or breastfeeding, it's all fake. So for them to pretend, they're still using a formula that doesn't have all of the ingredients that God designed in a woman's breast milk that help protect the baby. So it's damaging ultimately to the baby not to have the potential for the breast milk as God designed it that helps protect the baby's developing immune system until the baby is stronger. So again, it's all part of the delusion that we can change the facts of life. And that is a delusion. Medically, a delusion is defined as a fixed, false belief out of contact with reality. So I think we see that.
Yeah, and also somebody noticed that this is a political agenda. And as we see, they have this community, LGBTQ, they want to be equal. It doesn't matter what I think they are equal now, but okay, it doesn't matter, it's not important here. But now they have a whole month that promoting their equality with others. That's June, and it's all over the world. And now, when we compare it with other things, because there is also other things to solve, other problems in the world, when we give somebody a whole month to promote their rights to be equal, and lots of other things they are equal, that seems to have a huge support from side of politics, and also not only politics, from the sources of money. What do you think about this?
Well, it's clear that this is another political agenda to undermine the basic core family structure that has been true since the dawn of time. In addition to that, they are celebrating the opposite of all of our core values in Western civilization. And it's ludicrous to say that we need a month to focus on the pride agenda, to focus on equality. All of the individuals in the United States, whatever their sexual preference, have been equal under the law, under our constitutional republic all along. Equality is defined under the law. I've never made medical judgments or withheld treatment because of someone's religion or other than what they asked me to withhold based on their religious beliefs. I've never discriminated medically against race or religion or sexual identity. I've treated gays, I've treated bisexuals, I've treated lesbians, I've treated people with all sorts of sexual predilections. I've treated people of all faiths, and I've treated people of no faiths. I've treated people who are smokers and drug abusers to try and help them improve their health and overcome an addiction. This is, in the United States of America, until the divisiveness that was sown during the Obama administration from 2009 through 2016, these problems did not matter. People were equal under the law. The divisiveness and the politicization of all of this in the United States was escalated under the Obama administration, and now it's been catapulted to be escalated on steroids under the Biden administration, with those from the Obama administration in the shadow government in the background. All of the same policies that were implemented in medicine and other fields, the attacks on the military, the political changes in medicine, all of these were implemented initially in the Obama administration with the passage of the 2010 healthcare law known as Obamacare, and it has been the basis for all of these changes to take place even more so under the Biden administration, because all of the same bureaucrats that were in place running this agenda under the Obama administration are still in place in Washington behind the scenes, under the radar, in the shadow government, running the same policies and extending them.
What you can say about their statement, people who promoting this, their statement that science, they're using the word science, says that we are not the gender that we were born with, that we are gender that we are feeling. And now, if you have something against it, they said you are not following the science.
Well, I beg to differ with that view. That is false science. Biologically, there are male and female. That's also defined in the Bible for those of your listeners who read the Bible. It is very clear that that's biologically a fact. You can cause disruptions in biology with environmental chemicals or hormones during pregnancy, and you can create the medical disorder called intersex, where they are ambiguous as to whether it's biological male or biological female. We've seen that with atrazine as a chemical herbicide, for example. It changes the physiological function of amphibians. Frogs, for example. Dr. Tyrone Hayes has done a great deal of work in that area. I wrote about it 20 years ago in my books. These endocrine disruptors, we called them gender benders because they were disrupting the biological gender development and biological reproductive development. Those chemicals exist in the environment. That's part of the reason we're seeing so many abnormalities medically today, is that it's exposure to all of those. And they are additives in our foods as well. I wrote a book on that it came out in literally 20 years ago. It's called It's My Ovaries, Stupid. And Andrea, the book was translated, it was bought in Estonia and translated into the Estonian language 20 years ago, talking about all of these problems that were disrupting human biology. And one of my other books, Women, Weight, and Hormones, came out in 2001, and it was translated into Russian. So these are things that I've been writing about for many years that are disrupting human biological development. But it doesn't change the basic biology of male and female.
And also, we're now also facing that there is a lot of disruption, according to hormones, in our food, and not only food, in all our environment. Is that made on purpose? Because we know how to produce food without editing hormones, but there is a lot of food now who are estrogen and has a big impact, especially on males.
No, you're exactly right. That has been by design. That was the discussion in my book 20 years ago, It's My Ovaries, Stupid. They've known that soy-based foods are endocrine disruptors. The phytoestrogens in soy decrease men's testosterone production, decrease sperm count, cause infertility in women of reproductive age, and they've known that. It's only the fermented soy products that Asian diets use that doesn't have some of those effects. Soy foods in the United States are predominantly non-fermented ones that have these endocrine disruptors and also have anti-nutritional effects to inhibit protein digestion. Again, I've been writing about this in books and doing programs on it for 20 years. But in addition to that, the herbicide, for example, I mentioned atrazine. Atrazine is an androgen blocker. It blocks the testosterone production in men. It creates men who are androgynous. They're thin, frail, they don't have the normal muscle mass. Atrazine exposure ends up damaging the testicles in men, decreasing testosterone, decreasing sperm counts, and causing infertility in both men and women. So these chemicals and their damages are well known to the government agencies that allow their use. Europe used to have more stringent controls on some of these products than the United States did, and now the EU has started pushing the use of these chemical endocrine disruptors all over Europe, so that some of the, the slow food movement in Italy and the organic food movements in other European countries and in organic farms in the U.S., all of these are under assault with these chemicals and the mRNA vaccines being sprayed on crops.
Yeah, now you mentioned mRNA vaccines. They are already in use in the United States for cattle, exactly for animals.
Livestock is a real problem. The mRNA vaccines have been used in the pork farms since 2018, and the public was not told that. They are trying to push it into the cattle as well, but so far, most of the cattle ranchers have stood unified against doing that, but the government is pushing hard to make it a requirement. And what we're seeing in the United States, which is probably coming to Europe as well, if it's not already there, is that they are weaponizing regulatory agencies and passing regulations and rules to accomplish these political agendas, to damage the food supply and sabotage it. They are not going through the process of writing laws through Congress. They're bypassing Congress by writing rules.
Well, I asked Chief for our national health, are Croatia is going to use this mRNA vaccine, because I know they are planning to implement, WHO is forcing to implement in all vaccines, even in pediatric vaccines and also for animals. And his answer was no. I hope it will stay that way, because it seems to that there is lots of things that we don't know about this mRNA technology, and we should control before we use it. It seems to now that we are coming again, you mentioned it, and in a lot of my interviews come again this agenda and this word, depopulation. Whatever these people who are making these plans and these rules, as you said also, and who want to take over more power for the future, all of them are doing everything to decrease population. It seems to that it's not coincidence.
No, it's not. This plan has been in development since the 1920s with the American and British eugenics movement that in the United States was headed by Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger was the one who believed that her words, we need to exterminate Negroes, Jews, veterans, Indians, and the disabled. And she was the influence for Adolf Hitler, who then adopted Margaret Sanger's eugenics movement and began his ethnic cleansing in the Nazi regime in World War II era.
It seems that they have now technology to do it on the other way. that even we are not aware of it, because they can do it through other things, like, as we here mention, food, vaccines, who has other purposes, and also these political agendas. Just let's mention again how they are exactly have influence in this ideology, gender ideology to reduce population. Can you give us some examples?
Well, I think the examples are coming from every direction, as you just described. Sabotage of the food supply through the techniques that we discussed with the chemicals that disrupt reproduction, and the mRNA vaccines clearly were known 15 years ago to cause infertility in all of the, and damage the ovaries and testicles in all of the animal species studied. They knew that, and they went ahead with this technology. They are spraying the mRNA vaccines on vegetable crops. They are contaminating the environment. They're genetically altering plants everywhere we turn. And this whole, the pedophilia movement, the gender ideology being forced on the world is all tied to the reproduction. And then we look at what is happening in hospitals, euthanasia of the elderly, and children deciding, you know, in Canada, for example, they were recently discussing the fact that children can decide that they want assisted suicide because they're depressed. That's horrific. Where instead of treating depression, which is a treatable condition, you're saying, okay, we'll help you kill yourself. This is appalling, Andrea. And not only that, we are seeing that the goal is to not treat people in hospitals. The Liverpool Protocol in England in the 1990s, in the National Health Service, was euthanizing elderly without their family's knowledge. That became Ezekiel Emanuel's complete life system that espoused rationing of medical care over age 50, and he was the architect of Obamacare, which led to the cutting of Medicare benefits for those over 65 in the United States, so that older people don't have access to the same medical care they used to. And in addition, that became then the COVID death protocol during the COVID years, where they withheld food and fluid and gave death doses of fentanyl, morphine, midazolam, and other sedative drugs that depressed respiration, stopped the heart, and caused death. And I know that. I was personally involved in trying to rescue patients from the hospitals who were trapped on the COVID death protocol.
Yes, and also they offer to poor people who cannot pay their bills, they offer them also possibility to help them to die. Also I had interview with Dr. Mike Eden, and he mentioned that, I didn't know that before, that when you have death penalty for somebody, and if you want to to kill him, that you use these two, midazolam and morphine, and that means 2 of 3 chemicals that is used to kill somebody, they used in health cares, home cares, also during the pandemic.
Exactly right. I did many radio shows and editorials. These were hospital homicides. It was the COVID death protocol. Hospitals were paid to do that. I did one program called Biden's Bounty on Your Life. Dr. Yeadon and I do a weekly radio show every week on these very topics. You have joined us recently, and we both have been speaking out the entire pandemic about the needless deaths that are being done deliberately. And yes, we have never, over my medical career, we have never used the sedative hypnotics, midazolam, any of the benzodiazepines, and narcotics. Those drugs depress respiration. We don't give them normally in people who have pneumonia and trouble breathing because we know it's going to make their respiratory distress worse. Now, during COVID, doctors claimed falsely that they were doing it to decrease anxiety. Well, that's a lie to the families to cover up the fact that they know they were actually hastening death by using those drugs in people who were struggling to breathe.
Well, this show is exactly to show everybody that there is no coincidence. Everything has some connection. Even this pandemic, even this gender ideology, and other things that we're talking about, like climate changes, these things all coming from the same sources. Money is coming from the same sources, and they are pushing hard through the global organization. For the end, what you can say to our audience in Croatia, what is our solution for the future? How people who are not agree with this, how we can fight against it?
Well, first of all, go to our website, www.truthforhealth.org. We have a lot of resources on legal ways that you can look at what we've developed for the legal means to stand against this tyranny in the U.S. and adapt those to your own country. And we are encouraging citizens groups to get active, as you have been doing in Croatia, and to show that you will not allow government, and particularly the unelected bureaucrats in the World Health Organization, to take over your country. Each of us needs to stand and speak out and resist evil. That, to me, is the bottom line.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. It was really a pleasure, and I hope we see you soon again in some other occasion.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. And God bless you for all the work you're doing. And may God bless Croatia for standing strong.
Thank you, thank you. Evo, dragi narode, kao što vidite, otvaram one teme koje nećete vidjeti u ovakvom obliku. Naime, primijetili ste da ćete u medijima uglavnom pronaći one koji promoviraju službene politike. Malo ćete pronaći u mainstream mediji, prvenstveno one koji postavljaju kritička pitanja. Zašto? Pa zato što jednostavno ta kritička pitanja dobivaju neugodne odgovore. Neke od njih ste mogli čuti danas. Zato je važno da o tome razgovaramo. Dakle, da u demokratskoj zemlji imamo demokratske metode, a to je rasprava. Rasprava o svakoj temi. Nema zabranjene teme. Nema dogmi. Moramo razgovarati i moramo donositi najbolje odluke što je za nas i za našu djecu i za našu budućnost. Jedna od ovih odluka dolazi nama na jesen, kada dolazi novi seksualni odgoj u školama, koje ćete vrlo vjerojatno mnogi od vas prvi puta čuti i preporuke koje se unutra mogu pronaći prvi puta vidjeti, vjerojatno ćete se mnogi iznenaditi. Treba postaviti pitanje da li je to uistinu tako dobro za budućnost naše djece. Također za one skupine koje se smatraju ugroženim, a danas sam i spominjao kao što su LGBTQ+, mnogi od nas, među kojima sam evo ja, smatram da stvarno svi imaju jednaka prava u Hrvatskoj i tako treba da ostane. Treba si postaviti pitanja kako zadržati ta prava da budu na fair razini, jer ovog trenutka mnogi imaju osjećaj da se u stvari manjine nameću većini i da nije u pitanju ovdje ostvarivanje prava, jer uistinu cijenim sve. Imam puno prijatelja koji spadaju u tu skupinu i uistinu smatram da su izvrsni ljudi i ne slažu se sa trenutno ovom promocijom i na neki način forsiranjem ove ideologije, jer ne smatraju da je potrebno to provesti na ovakav način. Zato postoje ovakve emisije i mi ćemo i dalje pozivati goste koji su, kao što vidite, stručni, koji znaju o čemu govore, koji su iskusili i koji će nas ostale laike podučiti da bolje razumijemo kako bi se lakše nosili sa tim problemom u budućnosti. Nadam se da vam je današnja emisija bila zanimljiva. Otvorit ćemo dalje nove teme. Hvala vam lijepo na pažnji. Ako ste zadovoljni kako radimo ovaj posao, ako ste zadovoljni sa gostima kojima dovodimo, nagradite nas, počastite nas kavicom. Mi nastavljamo dalje i vidimo se uskoro u novoj epizodi Slobodnog.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svoje voljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijeri, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi?